Hello, everyone. This is Julia O'Hara with Housing and Residential Education. Thanks so much for joining our second session of Ask Anna. We are here tonight with Anna Hernandez, our Assistant Vice President for Housing and Residential Education, and we are here to answer your questions about living on campus at USF. So before we get started, I just want to encourage everyone that's tuning in to send in your questions. You can do that by clicking the type a question button, whether you're on your desktop or an app. It should be there on your right. And once you type a question, we'll have it on our end and we'll push it out so that Anna can see it and answer the question. So while we wait for all of your awesome questions to come in, we do have one already, so thank you so much. I am going to just go over a couple of things that I wanted to mention before we get started. One is that the spring 2021 room selection is currently live in the housing portal for students who are currently USF students to apply to live on campus, and these are specifically students that aren't currently living on campus. If you are a student or have a student that is living on campus currently for the fall-spring agreement, they do not need to apply for housing again for the spring. These are for people who are currently off campus. That is open in the housing portal. And spring room selection for incoming admitted students, new students to the university, will open on October 21st. So be sure to follow us on Facebook and all of our social media to get updates on all of that. So to get started, we are going to ask the first question from a viewer. Anna, how does a student request a different residence hall for the spring term if they are currently in one building and they want to move to another building?
Sure, thanks so much. And thanks for the intro, Julia. Lots of information with regard to our spring application process, everybody. I'm Anna Hernandez. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Housing and Residential Education. And so happy to answer questions that you may have. So for students who may want a different residence hall in the spring, so this student is living in Poplar Hall and wants to move into the village. The spring transition is a little tricky for us because we have so many students that are applying for new housing to come in the spring, and we have students that are currently in spaces. So what I would encourage students to do is to email housing@usf.edu and tell us a little bit about what's prompting the move, what you're trying to accomplish there. What we're trying to do is, if it is that we have a new student that is coming into housing that we're trying to get someone together with, we're trying to accommodate those pairings to the best of our ability. If it is that we're able to make a move into another space, we would want to know, do you know somebody in the village that you're trying to get together with that has an open space, or sort of what the circumstances are? It can be kind of tricky with regard to the transition during the semester, between the semesters, because what we would need to have students do would be to remove all of their belongings from one location and then basically move in as a new resident in the spring. And so the transition can get a little tricky, but if you would just email us at housing@usf.edu, tell us what you're trying to do, and then we can try to figure out if that may be something that we can accommodate.
Great, okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure.
So as we wait for other questions, I wanted to ask you if you have any updates from housing that you would like to share with those that are watching. I know that we wanted to jump into Bulls in the Cloud, which is a virtual platform, a Canvas course for residents to connect with one another that are living on campus. So if you'd like to give an overview of that and offer some advice for students that are watching.
Yeah, that's great. So we know that this has been an unusual semester for everybody, and trying to build community, which is a hallmark of being a student on campus, is really important for us. And so what we have tried to do is, through various means, build that community virtually. And so we have great partners in our Department for Residential Education. So that's the department that oversees the resident assistants that are in the hall, the community managers, the full-time residential life professionals that live in the halls, along with our academic initiatives and our faculty and residents that we actually have living in the halls as well. And so they've been really creative in trying to figure out different ways to engage with students online. And so it is a great mix of both academic support, of educational programming, and really just some fun things. And so I thought maybe for those who haven't been exposed to it potentially, to really encourage them, students and or families, to understand what it is that's being offered. And so if we could, I might like to share my screen so that I can sort of show people what it looks like, and they can get in and explore that in Canvas as a student. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. If you go ahead and share your screen, I'll push it up on the, I will push it up on the view.
Very good. So if I've done it right, I think I have shared the screen.
And if I've done it right, I think that I have now shared it live so that it's
Sorry. Sorry,
right.
I moved it because I was trying to put it in front of the camera.
There you
Can
go.
you see it again?
Yep, we got it there.
That was my bad. I apologize. All right. So as you can see, this is the Canvas site that students should be familiar with in order to engage in their class schedules. So you'll see it's really comes up as a course that you can just add. And so this is the Bulls in the Cloud homepage, and it talks about some of the upcoming programming. So like right now, we actually are having a different program that's happening, and certainly if you want to go jump over to that program when we're done, that would be great. But that's our faculty and residence program to share some of their proudest moments at USF. And so some of this faculty hour, which faculty you can see is trying to break down some of the barriers that may exist with students trying to interact with faculty. And we have some great faculty and instructors that are here that are focused on helping students be successful, not only academically, but professionally and personally as well. And so just getting to know them sometimes can be fun. And so that's a program that's going on tonight. So tomorrow, which is Wednesday, is the first of the Real Talk series. And so you can see the topic areas that will be discussed. We have a wide variety of folks that are represented from residential education. We have one of our faculty in residence that are going to be joining us, and social justice peer educators. So you can hear from other students that are interested in the topic. And so that would be a great thing to expand your horizons. Hopefully when you go, you participate, but sometimes if you just want to log in and listen to what's happening, that's a great exposure too. So what's popping with Paris? So trying to just see what's going on in other students' lives. We are really encouraging our civic engagement, and so making sure that students register to vote. So yesterday was the deadline to register to vote in Florida, but trying to make sure that students understand the different voting methods that are available for students that are registered to vote in Florida, and or for those who are still registered to vote in maybe their home state, or want to make sure that they're engaged. This is basically making sure that we have resources that are available for voter information in that process. So there is also a new podcast that is being hosted for Bulls in the Cloud, and so students can go and check out the episode there, which looks like it's on Spotify. So we're trying to record anything that we're doing online so that students can really access that information at their convenience. And so I'm trying to think, I'm going to try to click on the resource hub. So this is at the bottom of the page. So Julia, you tell me if this.
Yes, we can see that.
All right, great. And so these are a variety of resources that are available. So I really want to encourage people to scan this Bulls in the Cloud page. Every day there's usually something new or something interesting. If you're looking for resources, if you're trying to figure out how you can stay active in campus recreation, counseling, and mental health, want to just understand ways to engage. We know that there's not a lot of international travel that is happening with our Bulls right now. And so, trying to figure out how can you still have access to some of those resources. Health tips, academic initiative tips. We want you to feel unbelievable. So trying to check out some of these resources. Let's learn more about that, because I'm not
Love
sure.
throwing in that bull pun whenever we can.
That is. So these are some self-care techniques, apps for wellness. Yeah, these are all just some fun different techniques and time management, wellness blogs, etc. So there's just a plethora of resources that are available here. So relaxation area. So let's take a look at the relaxation station. Live animal cams. Look at that.
It's a wonderful place to not only connect with others. Residential education did such a great job of providing all of these different outlets in a really creative, out of the box way. So it is absolutely, I encourage anyone watching that is a current resident or someone who maybe has a student that is a current resident to check out Bulls in the Cloud. And if you're interested in living on campus at USF, this is going to be a great resource that's going to continue into the spring semester as well.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
And I have two questions from the audience that relate to the safety.
Okay.
I'm going to put your camera on here. Let's see.
Very good. I stopped sharing. So.
All right, great. So one is a particular instance that someone is asking about a student's room that is being entered when they're away, and that they have notified the RA and the supervisor, but it's continuing to happen. So I'm sure this is a very individualized situation that we will be able to communicate with them personally about. But another question that came in after that is, what are the safety measures that are in place in the residence hall? So I think that, talking about this particular circumstance, what the steps are to be taken, and then following up with everything that we put in place to ensure a safe environment. If you'd be able to provide both of those points, that would be wonderful.
Sure. I imagine that is something that's alarming if you feel like your room is being broken into while you're away. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we're encouraging all students to do that live in the residence halls is make sure that they're locking their doors. So sometimes the community gets so strong is that people feel comfortable sort of running down the hall without locking their doors, et cetera. And we just encourage, for safety's sake, that that students have their keys on with them at all times and that they're locking their doors. I'm a little concerned by we've notified the RA and the supervisor, but it's getting worse. And so I'd want to know a little bit more about that. And so I would encourage the student to help us help you. And try to do some follow-up with regard to what that looks like and where the area of concern may be. Certainly if there is an ongoing concern and a student does not feel like they're getting the response that they need, they can certainly escalate it through the administration, right? So you can reach out to me, you can reach out to the director for residential education, and the university police are here. So if you believe that there's a crime that's being committed, please let the university police know, file a police report, and they'll do an investigation. So we hope that it doesn't get to that. And, I don't know whether this is a roommate conflict situation, but certainly that would be concerning if the perception is that somebody's breaking into the student's room when they're away. So let's, I would encourage that individual to help us help you to navigate the situation. We have several safety measures that are in place in the residence halls. I'll talk about sort of the health aspect of it in a bit, but from a general safety perspective, one of the things that we try to do from the outset is to build that community. So being familiar with who it is that's in the hall, who is a familiar face in that process. So you build your community, and then you can know whether something unusual is happening, and then we encourage students to ask questions and try to navigate. So what's going on here? And if something doesn't look right, please let us know. Right? We have resident assistants that are in all the halls, or the community managers over in the Greek Village. They have supervisors who also live in the halls, who are the residence life coordinators. We have RAs on duty every night in every community. We have professional staff that are on call as well. And so, again, if there's anything that seems off, please let us know. If you find a door that's ajar, we would ask you to close that door and report that to us so that we can understand what's happening and why it is that that's happening. Some of the safety measures that we do have in place is that students need to swipe their ID card. Only students that are residents of that building are given access into that building, especially with our limited visitation that we have in place right now. We really try to encourage students. I know USF Bulls are really friendly individuals, but we're really trying to discourage tailgating, which is basically trying to be polite and holding the door open for the person that's coming in behind you. If you don't know who that person is, or if they're not with your group, we would say, you just need to swipe in yourself in that process. So some of it is really being part of a community and encouraging students to keep their community safe, as well as some of the physical barriers that we have that are part of the safety mechanism. A couple of other things that we do to keep the community safe. We have regular fire alarms, fire drills. We do inspections of all of our equipment. We do health and safety inspections, which are actually happening this week or the next couple of weeks, to make sure that there aren't any safety hazards or issues or things that would cause issues within the residence halls that we need to be aware of, so we can just take some corrective action early on in that process. And then, again, I talked about some of the reporting mechanisms that we have in place. If there's any kind of conduct violation or things that make people uncomfortable that are in the halls, that would be a violation of our code of conduct or our principles of community, we would encourage students to go ahead and file a report with our Student Conduct and Ethical Development Office. So certainly if there's anything that's happening that makes you feel uncomfortable from a Title IX or a sexual harassment perspective, we have a very well-developed process for that. And so we basically need to know the information so that we can respond to the information. We take a lot of proactive measures, but we do rely on students to help us keep the community safe.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anna.
Sure.
And I've connected directly with this individual to make sure that we can get the information needed and get it to the right person.
Okay, great.
To work on this particular scenario. But thank you for providing all that helpful information about safety on campus.
Sure.
So in addition to, we talked about safety and opportunities for connection through Bulls in the Cloud. I did mention in the beginning a little bit about spring room selection that's happening right now. If you weren't here in the beginning, right now, spring room selection is happening for continuing USF students that are not currently living on campus. That happens in the housing portal for those who have applied for housing. And if there's still time to apply for housing, if you are a continuing student that is interested in living on campus, you can submit your housing application in the housing portal and then go ahead and select your room. And then incoming students, new admits, will be able to select their rooms October 21st, beginning then, if they have applied for housing. So be sure to get your application in if you haven't done so yet. In addition to that,
we've had over 800 students that have already applied to join us in the spring, and so we're really excited to welcome more bills on campus in order to meet the needs of everybody. You know, I think that students may have been trying to figure out how USF was going to handle the fall semester, and hopefully that's a vote of confidence that we've got another 800 students that are looking to move on campus in the spring. So we're excited to welcome them to be part of the community.
Absolutely. And we're absolutely excited to have the students on campus here. Those that are interested, definitely encourage them to submit their application and finish the application steps. In addition to the items that we have talked about, Anna, are there any additional points that you wanted to talk about this evening? Or
sure. Let me touch on a couple of things. One is because we're talking about the spring applications. I know that this is a time period that families are trying to figure out what is the spring going to look like, and we're trying to figure that out as well. So in the fall, we had a very robust testing protocol with regard to requiring people be tested before they came to campus and moved in. We also had a staggered move-in approach. We're working with our public health professionals on campus to assess what will be needed for the spring arrivals, and if those testing protocols and/or a staggered arrival will be necessary. Some of it is that, you know, we're a few months away and a lot can change in a few months, and so we're trying to work very closely with them to plan appropriately. Right now, we are scheduled to open on January 9th for students to return and/or new students to arrive. If there's a change in those dates at all, then we certainly will be in communication with students, whether they be new students or returning students. One of the things that I would like to share a little bit about is for our returning students, meaning students that currently live with us that will be returning to their same assignment in the spring, is that there's no need for students to move completely out of housing. So the semester ends on December 11th. If it is that the student's building closes for the winter break, because we only have a few buildings that are actually open for winter break housing. If students need winter break housing, they would need to register for that, and we'll have communication that's coming out regarding that. But for most of the buildings, they close on December 11th and then they'll open back up January 9th is the current schedule. There's no need to completely move out of your space. Whatever it is that you have in your room will be there when you open the door on January 9th. One of the things, because of the length of time that a student may be away, we really encourage them to empty out their refrigerator and unplug some of the appliances, make sure that they have retrieved all of the necessary things that they will need for that winter break stay at their home or on vacation, wherever they may be, making sure they have their laptops, their charging cords, their medication, their passport. Even if you may not think that you're going to be traveling, maybe you'll be traveling, or maybe you'll just need an ID to get on a plane. I'm trying to think of some of the common things that we have students say, "Oh, I forgot," and they have to come back, and sometimes that's really difficult for them. So we'll be presenting students and emailing students sort of a checklist as to how it is that you prepare for the winter break. And so we really want to encourage students to keep an eye on that. One of the things that we know, because after Thanksgiving, all of the classes will be going online, as well as the fall finals will be delivered remotely. is that we may have some students that are leaving at Thanksgiving time, and so that's fine as well. But it just makes that winter break period a little bit longer for them as to when they'll be away from campus. Again, they don't need to turn in their keys. We will be doing some sort of survey or assessment just so that we can get an idea of who is going to be on campus during the course of that period between Thanksgiving and December 11th. We will continue to have housing open. We will continue to provide dining options. So the meal plans and the housing agreement will remain in place.
And Anna, on that note, we do have a question about the change in spring break, if students will need to move out after the new spring break because things are going to be online after that as well. So if you want to give the overview of the same thing that you just discussed for spring break as well.
Sure. So for spring break, it's basically been modeled about like the fall break, Thanksgiving break that we have, except that it's a full week off. And then there are 2 weeks of classes following spring break, which now will be April 12th through the 18th. So the next 2 weeks, the instruction will be delivered remotely, and then the finals will be online as well. The residence halls will remain open until the end of the term. So I believe the date is May 6th. Is the end of the current student housing agreement, and the same thing with the dining. Dining will remain open as well during that time period. So there's no need to move out before that spring break period. But the same information that I'm going to give you about Thanksgiving probably applies to that spring break period as well. Is that one of the things that we do want to encourage students to consider is the activities that they may be involved in during the Thanksgiving break and or the spring break period. Is we want students to still be safe. We want them to be very intentional about how it is that they may be broadening their sort of their close pod of the people that they've been in contact with over the course of the semester, and making sure that that they still practice all of the things that we're asking them to practice on campus with, making sure that they're wearing masks, making sure that they're maintaining 6-foot distance. Those are washing their hands regularly. Being very conscious if it is that they get ill, and making sure that they're removing themselves from, any vulnerable family members, et cetera. And so we're really encouraging students to be responsible during their winter break period, because what we know, whether it is that they're on campus or whether it is that they stay at home, if a student becomes ill with the COVID virus specifically during that winter break period, then they're going to need to self-isolate for 14 days. And that 14 days happens to align with the returning week of classes as students are preparing for finals, as well as finals week. So if it is that we had a student, for example, that had to go into isolation on the Friday after Thanksgiving, they're going to be in isolation through the last Friday of finals. And so that's why we're really trying to encourage students to be really responsible with regard to their activities during the Thanksgiving break, so that they can avoid either being a close contact, which then would prompt a 14-day isolation period, or certainly we don't want anybody catching COVID themselves, but if they test positive, then they would be in isolation for at least those 10 days. And so, we know that finals can be stressful in and of themselves, and we know that isolation can be stressful in and of itself. And so trying to not combine those two things, and trying to really be careful so that students can be successful would be important to us as well.
Absolutely. Those are great points and important information as well. And new information that, this viewer is mentioning the spring break change that was announced either today or yesterday. And that information about being able to stay on campus during Thanksgiving break definitely applies for this after the spring break as well. So thanks for throwing that question in there too.
Sure. Julia, just if I may, for those who may not have heard that announcement about spring break, I'm happy to have shared that. But it was coupled with a lot of other important information that was sent to students with regard to spring class registration. And so I just wanted to make sure that our audience didn't miss that information. The spring class schedule has been released and is available online. And so students can go in and see what classes are available. They can't register yet. The registration window opens up on November 2nd, but this way it's a time period for students to understand what classes are going to be available, what mode of delivery is going to be, the class will be offered. There's a great, what do you call it, infographic that shows, primarily distant class, classroom, hybrid, et cetera, and sort of what the definitions of all of those different modalities are. And so that's really helpful. We want to encourage students during this period before the registration actually opens to make sure that they don't have any holds on their account, whether that is from a financial hold or whether there's any kind of academic hold, that they would need to get clearance in order to register, prerequisites, those types of things. We want to make sure that we encourage students to reach out and make an appointment with their academic advisor so that they can make sure that they stay on a path to graduation, that they are registered for enough courses, that they understand any implications to financial aid that may come into play with regard to how many classes that they register for Florida Prepaid or for Bright Futures or any other scholarship opportunities that exist. And so this next couple of weeks is a good time to basically get prepared so that when your registration window opens, that you're ready to go, you understand what it is that you're planning on registering for, and have some different options if it is that those classes are full. They have expanded the wait list option, and so there's some information in that email that students received about the wait list option as well, so that if you go and try to register for a class and all of the seats are filled, there's an opportunity in some of the classes to request to be on a wait list. And then if a student decides to take a different course and opens up a seat, then you're able to fill that from being on the waiting list. So there's a lot of great information that came out this week. And so I would encourage students and or if we have families that are in the audience to connect with their students just to make sure that they received that information and that they have the ability to ask any questions that they may have.
Perfect. Wonderful. Yeah, I did a quick search to see if any of that email was on the website, on USF's main website, and I didn't see a link to it, but I would encourage anybody listening, watching, to check their USF email. That is where all of the information is sent. So check it regularly for sure.
Yeah, there may be some information on the registrar's website, but I'm not sure. But we can try to find out where that information is living in the virtual atmosphere, so that can be shared.
Absolutely, yeah. All right. Well, Anna, is there anything else that you wanted to share with those watching? Any tips, tricks, words of advice for any potentially incoming residents?
Well, I know that we have, this is homecoming week, and so there are a lot of virtual activities that are available through student organizations and through the Dean of Students office, and so I want to encourage students to take advantage of that. Homecoming is a little different this year, but there's still a lot of opportunities to engage. I know that we have the family weekend, family and friends weekend that is coming up as well, and so I want to encourage. I'm trying to see if the deadline to register has already passed. It may have.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the link now to see.
It may have closed yesterday, but that would be something to take a look at.
I think it actually is today.
through Wednesday at 5 p.m. So you still have another day to register. So I would encourage you to go to the Parent and Family Programs website to learn a little bit more about Parent and Family Weekend and see if that's something that you would like to engage in. We always have great turnout for those programs, and so we want to encourage that as well. So, but we're closing. I would just say, maybe it looks like there's another question before I close.
Yes, I just saw that
Okay.
about spring activities that may be in person. Have you heard of any of those?
So it's a little too early to tell what we're going to be able to do for the spring. I hope everybody that's listening understands that we want to be able to provide different opportunities and different ways that students can engage on campus. But we also want to make sure that we keep students safe and try to mitigate the virus. And so, our hope is that the numbers continue to drop with regard to how COVID is impacting our community. But right now we're just trying to be super cautious. And right now we don't have any additional events that are scheduled for the spring. But please know that everybody on campus wants to return to our normal state as quickly as we can, but we also want students to be able to stay on campus and achieve their academic goals. So right now, we're staying status quo with regard to some of the restrictions that we have in place. All right. I think that's all the questions that I see that may be coming in, but again, this is an opportunity. We do this on a weekly basis, so if there are questions that come up, it doesn't need to wait until Tuesday night to ask questions. Really want to encourage you to reach out to housing@usf.edu, connect with your RA, connect with your residence life coordinator, get engaged with Bulls on the Cloud that we previewed or demonstrated a little bit earlier in the segment, and really just find the way to make this a successful semester for you. And so, as new questions come up, we're happy to answer them, and I will see you next week.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Have a great night, everyone.
All right, take care.